Okay, we're up and we're live. At least I think we are. Second time's a charm. I was apparently talking to myself the whole time. So this time we're actually looking forward to talking to you guys. Up, I am seeing you guys are jumping in. This is good. This is a good sign for sure. As you're jumping in, be sure to say hi, comment. It does take 30 to 60 seconds for me to even see your comments come through. I can't see you, but you can see me. Please talk. But hey, guys, thank you. Thank you for joining this party. This is my first book. This is my first baby. I know for some people that might feel like it's just like one little step in the rung. For a guy who hates writing and only likes to do podcasts, which I've done for 11 and a half years. Many of you guys are followers of our Money Ripples podcast. Many of our guests have actually all of our guests that we have today have been on our podcast that you'll be seeing as well. So definitely excited to have you guys here to celebrate this little party. So without further ado, let's have a party. And let's make sure, I want to make sure I get a thumbs up from my team. Things are working, right? Okay. Wait, is that a thumbs down? Oh, it's a thumbs up. Okay, good. Just want to make sure. Okay, great. Definitely make comments. You know, if you're here, say hi. Tell us where you're from. Okay, we already got one. Awesome. Glad to have you here with us, Olivia. So it's great to see you here. So glad to have a little party. But yeah, definitely be sure to share with us and talk to us here. All right, I'm just going to launch right into this because, again, this is for the book, The Work Optional Blueprint. This was a labor of love. It took a long time to get this out. And at least for me, it took probably a good year, almost year and a half for this book to actually become real and legit. And so here we are. I've gained some gray hairs. I've probably lost some hairs as a result of this book. But I'm excited to have it here today because this book is something that's life-changing, especially when we talk about if money ripples, creating that ripple effect in lives. You know, so excited. Excited to have you here, Red Baron 3695. I'm glad you had a great conversation with Parker today as well. So glad to see it. So all right, let's jump in. Let's talk about what this party is going to happen because I did not want to do a 7-hour party like good old Alex Ramosi. I'm one of those guys. I like to be pretty short and sweet. So anyways, here's what to expect today. Here's what you're going to see. First, we do have our guests. We have Sharon Lechter, who's also being joined with us with Nathan as well. We've got her joining us today. She's the co-author of Rich Dad Poor Dad and several other books. Also been worked on the nationwide, really with the Presidential Council for helping create more financial education. So excited to have her here. We'll have Eddie Wilson on later tonight as well. Eddie has actually bought and sold and exited out of businesses where it's literally totaled into hundreds of millions of dollars. David Richter, who's worked in his book Profit First for Real Estate Investing. Great guy to have us join us, where he also lives and embodies what we talk about in this book, Work Optional Blueprint. In fact, that's why I invited each of these guests, because each of these guys have actually done this. So yep, Brendan, glad to have you here as well. So, all right, moving on. So I want you to stick around because at the end of this, or towards the end, we'll be talking about throughout, but we're actually going to be giving out about $2,000 of free gifts when you buy the book today. So be sure to understand what those gifts are, because we have a very specific instructions you need to do to get these gifts. You can't just buy the book and then disappear. You won't get anything. Okay. So there's a way to actually notify us to do that. So let's just jump right in, because I know they've been waiting here and we started a little bit late because this is round 2 for us since the first time you guys weren't even on. But we have Sharon Lechter with us as well as Nathan Barkosi, right? I said that right, I think, this time, right? Right, Nathan? So awesome. So I'll bring you guys in here. There we go. All right, I'm going to put it on this mode so it makes it a little easier. There we go. Awesome. Now we got the 3 of us here like the Brady Bunch. So glad to have both of you guys on here with us today.
Delighted to be with you, and congratulations. There's nothing like opening the first box of your first book, so congratulations.
Yeah, Chris, Absolutely. Thank you for having us. It's a privilege and such an honor to be celebrating the joy of the publication of your first book.
I know. Absolutely. Appreciate it. It's more than 35 pages. I'm excited about that too. So, now you guys have a book I want to talk about as well. But just really quick, I know both of you guys have experience about what we talk about here with this book, where we talk about really how do you create that real financial independence, right? How do you create enough cash flow, passive income, especially those that want to be hands-off investors. So they work because they want to, not because they have to, right? And a big thing is, of course, is how do you actually get people not just to retire, but really to be work optional, to be able to choose what to do with their time, which I know aligns perfectly with your book too. Tell me, I'll start with you, Nathan, then I'll move to you, Sharon, as well. How important is money freedom to time freedom? Like, how how does that work together in your eyes?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for asking, Chris. Um, in a short version, as I was telling you a little bit beforehand, before we dove into this,
Mhm.
my definition of true wealth and my valuation of our time really changed when I was 16 years old. I was a nationally ranked cyclist, top 10 in the nation. As a 16-year-old, I was going to go race in Europe,
Wow.
and that was my passion and my path forward. And then I got hit by a car at 60 miles an hour.
Mm.
So I died on the scene. I was immediately in a coma. I was in that coma for 2 weeks. And by God's grace, I was able to wake up from the coma, but I was paralyzed on my left side and I was in the ICU for an entire month. So then miraculously, I was able to learn how to walk again and how to talk again and eat again
Mm.
and just live again, right? Um, and when you're laying in the hospital bed, knowing that you're a top 10 nationally ranked cyclist, but having to press a button to just, I mean, get rolled out of bed on your own, you really start to consider what actually holds value, right? Do the medals that you won, do the podiums that you were on, do they hold value, or does the time that is so sparing for our lives, does that truly matter, right?
Mm.
So what I really defined as true wealth is freedom of time, right? Which is why my mission as a businessman and as an entrepreneur has been to be able to create multiple streams of income through real assets, that have been founded through real relationships, so that I can create those multiple streams of income, providing me with the freedom of time, because time is our most valuable asset, right? So when we utilize our time to the fullest capacity, that's when we're knowing, that's when we build true wealth, right? Because
Yeah.
tomorrow is never promised, right? So we need to make the most of today, and this is what our book is really about. That's a very high level look at it, but I would love to, of course, speak more in depth, in alignment with your book and, of course, with Sharon's guidance as well.
Yeah. Thank you. No, that's an incredible story. I can't. It kind of puts in perspective when I think about people trying to create financial independence and financial freedom, but at the end of the day, it's not life or death, right? I mean, when people complain about being paycheck to paycheck, and it's not easy. I've been there. I've been worse than paycheck to paycheck before, but it's definitely, when it comes to a life or death situation, those worries kind of seem to melt away, don't they?
Right.
Yeah. Well, Sharon, give us your perspective. I know it's definitely a pleasure to have you here with us as well. You know, as you've journeyed, along this time, ever since. I mean, you wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad about 30, actually almost exactly 30 years ago, isn't it? 30 years this year.
2028. Yeah.
That's
Mine is
right. Yeah, 28 years. I mean, tell me. I mean, how has your perspective shifted about financial freedom and such over the years?
Well, I think one of the biggest things I had was blessed with parents who talked about money and assets and liabilities growing up. So it wasn't until I got out into the real world that I realized that most everybody else was messed up about how they thought about money, and they had a scarcity mindset. So I love your sign, live your life now, not tomorrow.
Mhm.
It really is. It comes down to the simple phrase: you either are in control of your money or it's in control of you. And the vast majority of people are controlled by their money or their debt, which is a huge problem today. And I think it's really important to take a step back and say, where am I today and how can I get to where I want to be tomorrow? And it's really important to take control of your life and understand how to build those income producing assets, because your time freedom comes with financial freedom. And so if you're financially free when the income from your assets cover your monthly expenses, then you have freedom of time. And so by building multiple streams of assets, by building businesses, real estate, paper assets, commodities, and digital currencies that create cash flow, you can create a legacy of financial independence that gives you life independence, but also helps create generational wealth so that you are creating the future for your family and for future generations. And I think that's exactly your blueprint that you've written. I'm so happy with it. Is, when we first did Rich Dad Poor Dad, we were the outliers. People didn't
Mhm.
like us because we were bringing an idea that was different from go to school, get a job, be a loyal employee, and get a pension. All right. So we really were the ones, the trailblazers, to get people to wake up and think about abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. How can I create assets? It's not what you do for your paycheck that determines your financial future. It's what you do with your paycheck that determines your financial future. And that message, I'm thrilled to see you carrying that torch in your new book. And I'm delighted working with Nathan. I'm always looking for those young talents that truly have a heart to help others and truly understand the power of passive income, the power of assets, and the power of faith and integrity. And so I'm proud to support Nathan as we launch our book as well.
Tell us more about that book.
Well, it's called Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth. And it's really a parable about three brothers. Olden represents old weather, the old wealth, the slow and steady accumulation of income. Okay. Yeah. New wealth is like the internet gurus that flash in a plan. They chase all these new ideas, and many of them are very successful. But is that success sustainable? Maybe, maybe not.
They're drop shippers, huh?
Yes. And then true wealth is those that understand the power of old wealth, the power of new wealth, but truly understand that all of that comes with the goal of having that freedom of time, that freedom of giving back, that freedom of community, not just making money, but how do you employ it? How do you invest it for the future? And then how do you use the fruits of your labor to help other people in the world as well?
I love it. Nathan, what would you add to that?
Yeah, and really generosity is true wealth, right? And I love how Sharon discussed the community. Something that is very interesting. I've been in collaboration as well with Russell Gray. We're doing Main Street Media Network, which is really, as I expressed before, really intending to get people off of the passive reliance and dependence of Wall Street into the active ownership of Main Street. And that is through ownership, right? Ownership of real assets. And we have a generation that is lacking purpose, right? And so if we build this true wealth, right, the true wealth goes so far beyond just the money, right? Yes, we'll build multiple streams of income, and I would love to mentor others so that they can do what I've done, which is build multiple streams of income to achieve financial freedom and time freedom. But then, of course, what we do with our time is the most important, right? So if we have that freedom of time and we're able to act accordingly and be generous with our time, be generous with our assets, with our money, with everything that we're building, then, I mean, imagine a society, right? Imagine a society that was living their life now, not tomorrow. I love the sign behind you as well. That is, I mean, a saying that I live by, right? Tomorrow's never promised. So if everybody was living that way, if everybody was pouring themselves into their families, into their loved ones, into their communities by this freedom of time, which was attained through true ownership, right? Through free market capitalism. And I mean, that's how America was built, right? So if we had a society that moved forward with this, I mean, this is obviously a large concept to wrap our mind around. And so I'm very grateful for a man like yourself, you know, publishing a book that is in such alignment with what Sharon and I are publishing come January, because I think there's really a wave right now through our society, through our culture, to take it back, right? Like, we, the people, you know, need to be able to own real assets and own our businesses, own our families, right? We need to be the ones to raise our children, right? We don't need to give that passively to someone else to raise our children. So this is a whole soapbox that I could get on, but it's really incredible to be able to see how everyone is in alignment right now with their passions and with their missions that are, I mean, executing exactly what you did in your book and what we are with Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to add that I appreciate you letting us talk about our new book, and we're very excited about it. It's going to be out in January, but we're here to celebrate you and to celebrate your book. And so I think it's really important to highlight what you're sharing in your book, the blueprint of really getting your time back and understanding the power of financial freedom. So I want to congratulate you and let you know we're going to support you in your book as well.
I appreciate that. And you know, everything you said, it's kind of interesting because, you know, probably can't see it as easily right here, but the subtitles, you know, live free, trying to read it there, be wealthy, make a difference, right?
Hmm.
And that's definitely, I could see that's the common theme you guys have in your book coming out in January, which we're excited to promote when it comes out for sure. In fact, we probably should have one of you guys on our podcast before then, so we can promote your book when it releases. But that's, I agree. Like, hearing what you guys have been saying, I mean, education wise, especially from a standpoint of not just formal education, but even financial education, everything that's been taught to us has been kind of phony. If you really think about it, there's not real substance to it, right? I mean, Nathan, you were talking about like how there's real tangible things that we're trying to have as having a legacy. And a lot of things has been, yeah, a lot of kids I know, even my kids' age, I have 8 of them, they talk about, oh, maybe I should become an influencer, right? Is that really real? Is that really something of substance,
It's
or
new
hey,
wealth.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's the new wealth, right? It's drop
That's right. That's the
shipping
new
and
wealth.
influencing and social media fame. Yeah, it's the new wealth, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's just like it's a different world, but we talk about digital currency, which is an asset, but how much real value is there at the same time, right? So there's all these things that we talk about, but at the same time, like that's where Main Street investing comes in. All financial advisors are compensated to tell you about Wall Street, but they ignore Main Street, and that's a big part of what we talk about in our book. Of course, is where I used to be a financial advisor, the AKA salesman in a suit, and how I thought that was the only path, even after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad 2 or 3 times. Somehow I made a narrative in my head that you guys somehow supported us as financial advisors. Now I look back and think, man, you're such an idiot. The only thing that probably was supported.
I think the vast majority of people, Chris, are raised on a false narrative of,
Yeah,
depend on your employer to take care of you, and depend on your government to take care of you, instead of
right.
taking charge of your own life and becoming the CEO of your own life. And that message is hard to hear when your expectations have been taught to rely on your employer to take care of you. And that's something that, we're trying to shake people up and blow up that false narrative to say you have the opportunity to create the success you deserve by becoming in charge of your own destiny, by building assets, buying, building, creating assets. It's okay if you're an employee. We need employees. But what are you doing with your paycheck? What are you building on the side? How are you converting your income from your paycheck into other assets? Because we have the decision with every dollar we receive. Are you going to let it flow through your fingers, or are you going to take that and re-employ it and reinvest it for your future?
That's right. I call it the income avalanche, right? As you start to use that income to buy assets, then you reinvest the income that comes from those assets, and you just keep compounding income versus compounding interest.
Which, Chris, it's so interesting, right? Because you mentioned this, right? With even, I mean, and of course, Sharon was mirroring this as well. The difference between someone who just reads Rich Dad Poor Dad, someone who just reads your book, who reads my book, and they're inspired by it. Of course, it's very motivational. It's very eye-opening. It's very inspiring, and they read it, but then they just continue to collect their paychecks and let it drip through their fingers, as Sharon just gave as an example. And so the key difference, right, is someone who actually musters the courage to take action, right? That there's the difference between a dreamer and a successful entrepreneur is having the courage to take action, right? And then of course it always involves risk, but it needs to be calculated risk, right? And then of course you're able to take that courageous action step forward, and that's how you become a successful entrepreneur.
I love it. Well said. Well, again, thank you so much for both of you guys being on today. I don't know what I said. I just hit a button. I think I messed something up. So anyways, love having you guys on. I know you guys were busy, and you already spent more than enough time with us. So thank you so much for joining us, Sharon and Nathan, today.
Congratulations again. And we're excited to see the impact that you'll make on so many people's lives. So thank you, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. And thank you. Like I said, I mean, I love how our brands are so in alignment. I think this is the necessary step that we need to take together, right? And so I really appreciate you bringing us on. And I'm excited for the podcast that you and I have in the near future, because we'll definitely get those scheduled.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, guys.
So much. Take care.
All right. Well, hey, let's hear from you guys. Let's hear an amen, right? I'd like to hear from you for sure. So be sure to type that in. If you guys love that, please express the love there. Actually, even put this here. Shane, welcome. You and your wife have been lurkers for a number of years, and You've been putting off without both feet jumping in that pool. Well, here you are. Appreciate you tuning in. So I know I've known you guys for many years. It's good to see you, of course. So, and we got an amen. There we go. Oh, we got a couple of these here too. So awesome. Okay. Now let's move it on here. I did something to my screen that looks so funky right now, but we're going with it here. So, all right, going right back to this again. We'll be talking about their book coming up in January too. So, all right, now I know the question came up, and I'll probably have to ask Danielle about this for sure. Somebody asked, "What if I've already bought the book and I want to get those free gifts?" I'm calling Audible right now. I'm totally cool with it. If you guys want to be able to do that, I am down with that for sure. So, and I got a thumbs up from Danielle. So, guys, if you did already buy the book, you say, "Wait, I already bought it. Do I have to buy it again to get these free gifts?" If you have, then no, don't worry about scanning this code yet. But we will give you some instructions of what to do in order to get those free gifts that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. So make sure you're sticking with us, because it's not the typical thing that we know who buys our book, right? You have to notify us. All right. Okay. I know we're about to move up here. Before I bring on Eddie, because I know he's supposed to be jumping on here in a few minutes, let me talk about this book a little bit more, right? The work optional blueprint. I know it was great because good. I can see a lot of you guys have already bought it on Amazon. Awesome. Actually, I'll bring that up in case you guys need to scan the QR code to buy it. This is the QR code to buy it. To answer your other question too, I know I've been asked this 3 times today. Is it on Audible? The answer is no. However, it will probably be on Audible going into 2026. I'm planning to start recording that into early next year. So no, it won't be on Audible anytime soon, but it will be. And yes, because this is always the follow-up question, it will be in my voice, not Morgan Freeman, nothing like that, right? Although it'd be cooler if Morgan Freeman did versus my own voice. But no, it'll definitely, we will have an Audible version coming out in 2026. But for right now, here's how you can get the book. Let me give you the premise of the book, right? If I were to really distill it down, we talked about my story where I started out as a financial advisor. I believed it. I drank the Kool-Aid. I thought that if you just set and forget it, you save forever, you slave and save away. Eventually, if you put into mutual funds and your retirement accounts in 40, 50 years, maybe even 30, if you're a really good saver, you'd have this financial freedom. To my shock, of course, I sat down with my own dad, 4 years in being a financial advisor. He was the penny pinching saver. He was the guy that scrimped and saved everything, paid off all of his debt, saved into his 401k with the company match that everybody tells you that you're supposed to get. And then guess what happens? After that point, I said, "Dad, looking at your numbers right now, you're 61 years old. If you try to retire today, you will have to die in about 5 or 6 years." And of course, that's not what he wanted to hear, right? And this bothered me so deeply because I realized this guy was the epitome of what I was teaching as a financial advisor. He was living in scarcity. He was being the cheap penny pinching saver, depression era mentality, yet he couldn't create financial freedom for himself. And the only answer I could give him as a financial advisor was work longer, slave away a little bit more, maybe work till you're 70, which is exactly what he did. And as a result, of course, then he had to spend the rest of the time trying to figure out how not to outlive his money. And this is a prevalent problem across the plane, right? Like it's happening everywhere across this country right now. So many people that buy into this dream, this false dream, they're living on hopium, right? They're smoking that hopium, hoping that someday it's going to work out, only to find out it's just not enough. And in my own story, what ended up happening is I was able to break away from that. I quit being a financial advisor in 2006, started learning about real estate investing and passive investments, to where as I started to get the income coming in from that, I was able to get to a point where I was work optional. I had enough money coming in, passive income coming in, that I could pay for all my household expenses. I was able to work because I wanted to, not because I have to, because my money was now working harder for me at this point. And that's what this book talks about, is how do we get lean, get this money liquid, and then get it out? How do we make sure we're a wise steward of our money, not be a penny pinching saver where you live in scarcity like Dave Ramsey teaches you to do, not being a spender where you just blow it and live it for today. Although my sign does say, it's about today, right? But it's not just about today, right? It's about that blend between the two of stewardship, wise stewardship, of how can I be the best steward of the assets and the resources and the money that I have to create the highest and best use of it, to be able to bless more lives, not just my own life and my family's life, but others' lives too. And that's been my mission with Money Ripples, is helping you not just get financially free, but create a ripple effect to the lives of others. So that is what this book is essentially about. So definitely you can scan the QR code to get your copy there today. And of course, like I said, there's instructions later on to tell you how to get some of these free gifts we'll talk about in a bit. But first and foremost, I'm going to bring up Eddie. It's good to see him jumping into the back studio there, the backstage. Give you a little backstory on Eddie here. Eddie, man, I view him as like one of my top mentors, even though I know I'm not hanging out with him all the time, right? But he is somebody that I definitely look to for wisdom. This is the guy that, of course, is not just the co-founder of Aspire. That some of you guys may have even been to their events that they do across the country with literally thousands of people in attendance. Not only has he done that, but this guy has bought and sold and exited businesses left and right over the years. Guys, he even, just so you know, a little known fact about him, he even found one of the coolest TV personalities you might have heard of. But we may not go into that today as well. But this guy has had a breadth of experience and embodies what we teach about with this work optional blueprint. So it's good to have Eddie. It's glad to have you on, man.
Yeah, glad to be on. Congratulations on the new book.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I know you were encouraging us to do it for a long time and get it out there to create that ripple effect, and here we are now.
Absolutely, very cool.
Yeah, man. So tell us about your own life and story, because obviously you've been living this kind of life as well. Tell us about your story and how you've been able to apply, breaking away from the status quo type of thing and really creating wealth on your own terms.
Yeah, and I've been on your podcast. We talked a lot about, things like this. And the one thing that I'm so blessed with is, I mean, you teach a lot of the kind of the infinite banking structures and things like that. And I grew up with it. It's like, it wasn't like something that I discovered. It was something that I was taught and I kind of grew up in. And I'm so grateful and blessed to have grown up in a family that this was a part of just what you did. And probably the most impactful conversation I've ever had in my life was at 24. And my dad said, Eddie, he said, if you want to really live a life of abundance, he said, and complete freedom, you got to create a pathway where you've got enough reoccurring revenue coming in that you can live life on your terms. And he was like, what would your number be? And the biggest number I could come up with at 24 was 78,000. I was like, I want to come up with $78,000 a year. He's like, okay, well then let's create the plan. And it started with the insurance policies, and we did it that way, where I actually would borrow off, I would put it in, borrow it off of it, I would invest, and then it would just kind of replenish. And 2.5 years later, I had $78,000 worth of passive income. And
Wow.
I went back to him and said, hey, I think it should be 150. He's like, no, live off 78. He was like, just live off of that or live off of less. And he's like, and then you get to live in complete freedom the rest of your life. And that's where I think people miss the whole, I say there's like 3 phases of your life. It's like the first phase is it's all like growth. Like, it's like, I got to exchange dollars for hours and I got to figure out how to get enough that I can put it away, and then you get into what I call the maintenance years. Well, most people believe the maintenance years are really retirement. Okay, now I have enough that I can just live off of it. It's like, I think that you should architect it in a way that you get into maintenance. And that's what my dad did for me, is at 26, I'm literally living off of my reoccurring income. So you think about this, since 26 years old, I've never thought about, do I have enough money to feed my family, create housing? It's just always there, and obviously it's increased quite a bit since then. But it's like, I don't think I have the $1 billion worth of exits in my late 30s, early 40s, if my dad doesn't have that conversation with me at 24. Because, quick stories, one of the first exits I had was I got an offer from an executive in New York City, and he said, hey, I want you to come run this tech company for me. And I was like, okay. And I said, well, I'll do it, but number one, I'm not moving there, I'll commute. And he was like, okay. And I said, number 2, I don't want a salary, I want stock options. And he was like, well, I was going to give you both. And I said, no, I want 3 times the stock options, no salary, and I'll cover all my flights to and from New York. He was like, deal. Well, we exited that company in 4 years, and I made 100 times what I would have made if I would have taken the salary. So it's like, I think there's a third phase of life, which is what I call abundance. Once you figure out, I heard you when you were talking, you're like, I got to a place where working was optional. It's like, okay, well, now you're in this kind of maintenance phase. Well, then what you get to do is then you get to go create and live a life of purpose. Then the why comes in. Your why is obviously helping a lot of people get to financial freedom. my why is my nonprofit, Impact Others. I mean, I'm in 103 countries and orphanages and feeding centers. It's like, that's where I get to live, but I get to live there because I figured out that first part, and I feel like that's what you're on the mission to do, is to create that freedom so that people have the space to go live in purpose. And, I'm so grateful that I lived in a family that's what was taught. That was what was given to me. They didn't give me money, but they gave me the mindset and the understanding of how to do it.
So true. And most of us never get that benefit, but it's a whole new way of living, isn't it?
That's a new way of living. And when you live in that place of abundance, you get to really chase your why, your purpose, what you're created for. And it's like, and then when you do that, it's like, interesting enough, most of us will never feel fulfilled while living in that growth mode, that like exchange. Like, think about how many people are just frustrated at their W-2 or the company they have because it's not serving them. And it's like, what really happened to me was I got to that place where now I lived in abundance, and then I felt fulfillment. Like not only was I successful, but I felt the success, because then it's like, oh, that fulfillment came, because it's like, I got to choose where I spend my time, it's just a huge game changer.
No, it is. I think that's one thing that most people, it's like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Most people are just trying to figure out how to take care of their needs, even create a little variety in their life, which is why you'll see people travel. But you're right, that self-fulfillment, or self-actualization, those kind of things, that's missing.
Yeah, it is missing. But it's missing because you're stuck in this, I meet so many people. I mean, I have the Empire operating system, all this stuff. And so that puts me in contact with a lot of business owners. And most small business owners, it's like they created their small business to give them freedom. But that small business then becomes a noose around their neck, or chains. It's like, now they're working 60 or 70 hours a week trying to make it all work. And it's like, we get things kind of backwards. It's like, if we could get to a place where we had reoccurring substantial revenue, and that oftentimes takes delayed gratification, having the right structures to do it, and it takes access. You have to find opportunities to invest and find ways to move that capital. But it's like, once you have that in place, it's all possible.
That's right. What do you feel like you're most excited about right now? I know you mentioned Impact Others. I mean, you mentioned a lot of things you're working on. What excites you to wake up every day?
I'm just excited. I love life. It's like, I get to do so many amazing things that I love to do. So it's hard to be upset about anything. But it's like, a couple of big things right now is I'm rolling up tax firms. We're creating a big tax firm, and I've got this whole new AI project, and Andrew and I are sinking millions of dollars into that. But that's fun. The Aspire Tour, we're coming into our 4th year, which is every single month across the nation. And this will be our farewell tour, where we've decided that 2026 is the year that we'll go big, but then we're gonna sunset that brand. And Andrew, my business partner, he just had a baby, and it's like, I've got an 11-year-old at home that it's like, I just want to spend some more time with. So traveling the nation every month, doing these big events every single month, it just takes its toll on you. So it's really successful, but it's like, we just said, like, let's just set a time frame on it, and let's do it until we don't enjoy it anymore. And we still enjoy it, but it's a lot of work. So this next year, 2026, will be the farewell tour for Aspire, which is going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of fanfare. We're bringing back, favorite celebrities and musical artists and all kinds of fun stuff like that. And then really kind of the other big thing that I've been really working through and pushing is, I'm trying to create an endowment process for my nonprofit so that it lives on a perpetuity without ever needing me. Like, I'm 46. I want to make sure by the age of 55, 56, 58, something like that, where I've got so much income coming into that when I pass it on to whoever runs my nonprofit after I go away, they don't have the burden of fundraising. And so I've been buying a ton of Class A real estate, apartment complex. We just bought a $78 million one a couple weeks ago. We got another one we're going to take down. I think we've got under contract, should close this week. It's a $50 million. I'm just going really, really hard at commercial real estate right now. And because it's a good time to buy. But, that's really the big focus, is this endowment process that I'm creating to kind of create that path for Impact Others.
You're trying to get the charity to be work optional itself, aren't you?
I am 100%.
I love it. Well, that's great. Well, Eddie, I know people can follow you obviously on Instagram. Remind me the channel again.
It's Eddie Wilson Official. Any of the social media, and I do answer all my DMs. So anybody that has questions or wants to connect, just let me know.
I was going to say the real Eddie Wilson, but yeah, I do something with official in there.
Yeah, official Eddie. Eddie Wilson Official.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, be sure to follow Eddie. Lots of great stuff. Lots of great content. He's even had the School of Hard Knocks guy, corner him at one point. So definitely a great guy to learn from.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, congratulations on your book. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right.
All right, guys. So yeah, amazing words. I mean, I could tell a lot of people got like Livia. I know definitely I'm grateful for people just like Eddie as well that have done the same thing to give back. So yeah, love it so much. So all right, so moving on, I'm going to talk about some of the bonuses of the book that we have here. So let me bring it back. There it is. Voila. All right, cool. I think Danielle did that for me because I don't think I did anything there just now. But okay, so bonus number one that comes with you purchasing the book is Cash Flow Secrets. So Cash Flow Secrets is actually how I started because, I mentioned that I became financially free in 2006, but then in 2008, right? 2007 going to 2008, real estate market's crashing. I started a brand new business. So my personal finances were crashing because this business was launching and it was going broke. And as a result, I was going broke to the point where I was in the hole about $15,000 a month. And even though people were coming to us wanting to know how they could, quote unquote, get out of the rat race, like, you hear about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad and these kind of concepts, I was back in it. And I'm the kind of person that I just don't do the imposter syndrome thing, where I have to practice what I preach. So I stopped teaching people how to get out of the rat race, but instead started teaching them what I was doing, which is getting resourceful, how to find the money. In fact, so often during the recession, people would say, Chris, like, I would love to be able to learn what you know, but unfortunately, I just don't have the money to pay you. In the back of my mind, I'd be thinking, yeah, I get that, but I'm broker than you are right now. I bet you I could find the money. In fact, I would love to be in your financial situation right now. I wouldn't say this verbally because obviously they would probably not trust me if I had said that out loud. So instead, what I said out loud to them is, well, tell you what, if I can help you find the money, will you pay me? I said, well, of course, if you can find it, go for it. And so I would. And I'd find these creative strategies to help people to find and free up cash. Everything from tax saving strategies, like, Eddie was just talking about, like having taxes, right? And doing things that way, to ways to track your money, ways to creatively pay off your debt. That's not mentioned by the typical gurus out there, right? With like the cash flow index and things like that. And just different things that I was doing in my own life that was able to help people on average free up about $35,000 a year just from doing that kind of thing. Not even doing passive investments, just doing that. So Cash Flow Secrets actually goes into the depth of what were those top strategies that we had literally hundreds of clients use themselves to be able to free and improve their cash flow. So even if you say, hey, I don't even have a lot of money to invest, doesn't matter. This right here would be your ticket to be able to help you do that. So huge bonus to be able to have that. So Cash Flow Secrets, which normally we'd sell for almost $100, is now available. So again, if you want that bonus, this is the first of about 3 bonuses I'm talking about. Again, if you just joined us, here's how you buy the book to get access to those bonuses, right? So that's where you can scan the QR code to get the book. All right. I noticed that we had our little buddy, David Richter, jump in here. So I'm going to bring him on. Now, guys, if you haven't seen his book yet, especially if you're a real estate investor, this is like the Bible for somebody. Okay, I shouldn't go that. That's a little bit too far there. But when you're a real estate investor, this is definitely something that is a must read, just like Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a must read, just like E-Myth Revisited. If you're a business owner, you're supposed to read that book, right? Those are books you need to read. If you're a real estate investor, you should be reading Profit First for real estate investing. And that's what David Richter wrote. You guys might know of Profit First, Mike Michalowicz. That's exactly who supported him in this project. And so I'm bringing on David now because if anybody knows about the importance of not just get lean, get liquid, get out, right? I mean, that's what he lives by and what he teaches too. But it's really about how do you ultimately get that freedom to be able to be a bigger servant, which David is. So that's where I'm bringing on David. So David,
Chris,
good to have you on, man. Welcome to the party.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about you, like, and your kind of feelings about, financial freedom, time freedom, and all these kind of things that you deal with, especially in the profit first world.
Yeah. To me, I love the intro you gave to myself, because that's what I try and live by, the principles in that book, which it's the same as like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's basically
Mhm.
put first things first. And in a for-profit business, we got to make sure we have a profitable business to be able to have money at the end of the day, whether it's to pay yourself or to grow or to do what you want to do with the business. I've also tried to live my life like that, where on Sundays, or like, I've set this up for like, there's certain days of the week and certain times in that week where it's like, this is family time. Or if my daughter has something at school, it's like that goes on the calendar as soon as I have the school calendar. So that way I'm at those events. Like tomorrow is one of those things for my daughter. And like, that's where the day is blocked off to be able to go and support her at the school. So I try and do it in my personal life just as much as in the business world, and how we're helping people, and even in our own business, making sure that the first things come first.
Absolutely. So what would you say is kind of first things first in the financial world that you like to teach about?
I'm very much just like bottom of the shelf. Like, if you are making money but feel broke, here's the first steps to making sure that you have profitability in the business. That's where Profit First to me was eye opening. I look like I should be a bookkeeper and accountant. Like that should have been my background, and I should have gone to college for that. But honestly, my background is real estate and being an entrepreneur and being a business owner. And Profit First spoke to me because it's like, I didn't need to be a bookkeeper to do it. I didn't need to be an accountant. This is something I could do and implement, because it has to do with cash and cash flow. And this is something that every business owner touches, whether they have books, whether they have receipts in a shoebox, whatever it might be, spreadsheets, the back of a napkin. It's like, we're still going to manage cash in a bank account. So to me, the first things first, like, is making sure that you have the profit you want in your business. And that's really, in the Profit First book, they say it, and we teach that there's a formula. There's a broken formula: sales minus expenses equals profit. I make a sale, I pay everyone else and their mother, and hopefully there's profit at the end of the day, and everyone puts profit last. And that's why we get into cash crunches. And that's why we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off as business owners. But the Profit First formula is sales minus profit equals expenses. I make a sale, I take my profit off the table, and like, I protect that profit first. So if a dollar comes in, like, I'm breaking part of that into profit right away. And then my business has what's left over from the profit. And I can gauge and lower that profit or raise that profit as I need to. But that's where I'm protecting the profit first. So there's where the book title comes from. It's, we're putting profit in the proper position. So how do you do that practically? Because like Rich Dad, Poor Dad talks about, like, pay yourself first. And, the richest man in Babylon, a portion of all you have is yours to keep. That's why I was driven to Profit First, and why it really spoke to me, because it was also a system to make sure you could actually make it a reality, instead of it just being some fancy formula or some, words in a book, where you're literally utilizing bank accounts, like, as the envelope method, where you're setting up multiple accounts and you're being intentional with every dollar. So you're not just going to have this one big black hole bank account where all the money comes in, all the money goes out. You're like, what the heck just happened to all my money? Like, I had 100,000 last week, I have 10 this week. Where did it all go? That's how most business owners run the finances and the money and the cash in their business. We just want to help you make sure that you're being intentional. That's where Chris and like where you come into play, and just being able to teach people to do things differently. Like, the mainstream says profit comes last. And it's like, here's where,
Mhm.
like, if we have profit at the end of the day, then we'll take some out, or we'll take some out maybe. And maybe I feel guilty about taking some of the profit out of the business. I want to give a very clear system to make sure that there is profit, and you also can grow the business, but making sure you have that profit there. So one of the bank accounts we suggest opening up is literally called Profit. So you have an account dedicated to the profit of the business. Another one, I won't go into the whole system, but the owner's comp account is another one that I've seen really change a lot of business owners' lives. Of like, they set up a physical checking account, business checking account called owner's compensation, and you start paying yourself regularly. So if you're in real estate where it's up and down, if you're outside of real estate, maybe you have something that's more automatic and you have recurring subscriptions or something. whatever it is, you've got an account dedicated to paying you on a regular basis for the work you do in the business. And a lot of people just don't do that. They're scared to pay themselves. They're scared that they're going to hurt the business. They feel guilty about taking the money out. So that would be one of the first accounts I set up with people, is like making sure you're paying yourself and that you are protecting your profit. So there's some of the system. Those would be the first thing. So if I told someone like, what's an action step from here? Set up one bank account that's not your black hole bank account. Name it owner's comp and start just transferring 1% of every sale that you make. Start to get in the habit of not just having all the money go out the back door.
That's right. It doesn't have to be big, right? I mean, it could, like you said, 1%. Like you made
Start.
$100, you transfer $1, you know, not a big deal.
Not a big deal. Like start where you can. If you can do more, great. Then start with a bigger percentage, but start with what's reasonable for you, because usually we build a lot of bad habits with our money, or we haven't been taught what to do with the money when it comes through the business, or you start to scale and you're like, I've never seen this much money before. What the heck did happen? And I like lost control of the cash and the cash flow movement. So it's like, start where you can, give yourself a fighting chance to be, you know, a business owner that starts to build wealth.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting you brought up about the whole profit system, because that's also very similar to like Rich Dad Poor Dad talking about, you know, having cash flow, right? Cash flow is like the difference between your income and expenses and what's left over. And if you really think about cash flow, right? Its flow is like water. It's like blood flow. If you don't have it, there's no life. If you don't have money flowing, there's no life there either. And so many business owners, and I was guilty of this too. I was badly guilty, where I was just like you had described. I was so worried about trying to pay a wage, because I'm like, well, it's like feast or famine. I'm gonna have a great month one month, but then next month might suck. And so I just can't do that. I'll just pay whatever comes in and, you know, see what we can do there. But it's so interesting that living that life. And even when I was making a lot of money, banks were like, we don't want to touch you. You're a risky business owner. But then all of a sudden when I said, okay, I'm paying a wage, even if it's a lower wage, I'm paying myself a W-2 wage. All of a sudden banks are like, well, right this way. What money do you want? Right? There's no difference. I was still making the same money, but it's amazing how you just shift that into a more of that more mature money mentality when it comes to your business. It makes a massive difference.
Yeah, well, I would 100% agree. And that's where a lot of people are searching for that financial peace, and they think it comes one day at the end of a rainbow. Like there's this pot of gold of like, I'm going to sell my business, or I'm going to one day have more money coming in than going out. But if we don't build good habits now, then we're not going to have that pot of gold one day. And I love what you just said there, Chris, like bankability and making sure that you are able to scale, but not just always with your own cash and being able to get to where you want to. Well, you get there by being a responsible business owner and showing that you don't need to be bailed out by the bank. You're using the bank as a partner versus like a bailout, you know? So that's where you're really showing people that this is how I know how to manage the money and I know how to manage the funds, and I don't really need the funds, but it would be really helpful.
I totally agree for that. By the way, I'll even bring up this question because, hey, we're live. Might as well bring it. She asked, is there a point where having multiple bank accounts is not good? You know, do you use business credit cards too?
So I would say if you use a system like this, if you get too many accounts and you're not following the system anymore, like you've overwhelmed yourself, that would be like one big red flag. Is you start to go down this road and you're not able to do it consistently. Well, then it might be like I tell people, start where you are. Like if you need one account and 1%, start what you will do consistently. Then I will say too, if you're like a lot of the people we talk to and work with, they have multiple entities, multiple things going on, lots of things. If you have something like that, you might need to consolidate, whether it's different exit strategies or it might be different businesses that you own, different entities. It's like, make sure that the structure makes sense for you. Talk to your tax professional, talk to a profit first person, talk to someone like that to get a customized plan. That's when it can go off the rails too. If you've got a lot of businesses and you're like, oh, I'm going to set all these up, and then nothing happens, or you're like, your accountant doesn't know what to do, or your bookkeeper, and then it just becomes a mess. So that would be one big thing on having too many accounts. And then business credit cards, we actually do have quite a few people that use credit cards that we work with, but that's kind of part of their system, where they might have a credit card specifically for marketing, or a credit card specifically for this expense over here, or whatever it might be. So that way, though, we pay that credit card off with like the operational expense account, but then we can see it's almost like a sub account, of the operational expenses. So we don't mind the credit cards as long as there's a plan and you're backing it up with cash and you're not just going out there putting yourself into a deeper hole. It is. That's totally fine for me as long as you've got a system in place that helps you get to where you want to be. And I think there was
and that's where like the sub accounts kind of come in. Like you mentioned, like you can have it all in the same bank, and create little sub accounts and whatnot too. And
exactly.
And that kind of got brought up with Eddie Wilson too. Because I know I take some of my profits. I mean, yeah, I'll take some home, but sometimes some of those profits are going to like infinite banking. And Eddie was talking about how he was raised on infinite banking. His grandfather taught him how to do it because he owned a bank. What's your personal opinion on how you use that? Because that's a big section in the middle part of the book.
Yeah. So I use infinite banking myself. And when I do the draws, like my owner's draws, and like when I do like a big portion of that does not go into savings. It goes to, like that I'm saving up inside of my infinite banking policies. So to me, it's like if you have the cash and you are going to be able to utilize that cash, I would put it into the infinite banking. Like there's a lot of people that I think once they go down the profit first road, one of their big hurdles is I have a lot of cash and I don't want too much cash in a bank, and I want to be protected, and all the things that infinite banking provides and the policies and those types of things. So we tell people, like, if you start to get over a certain amount, like this should be part of your profit first system, that it's almost like the policy is an account. It is one of the accounts where you could put the money into. So profit first and infinite banking go hand in hand, where if you've got a good business and you're not sucking air and you're not like worried about where you're going to get your next meal, then this is where it's like, okay, this is where part of those profits can go into the policy. So I'm a big believer in that, use it myself. And that's where a very big chunk of that goes towards that every single time I take a draw.
I love it, man. Dave, I appreciate you being on here and taking time of your busy schedule to join me for my little party here.
Yeah.
If people want to follow you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah. So I appreciate that. And congratulations. This is awesome. Writing a book is no joke. So I just want to congratulate you on getting this out to the world and with what you've done. But then I also, if you want to connect with me, simplecfo.com, probably the best place to do it. That's where you can find me. I think we also have like my links on there to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those places. You can find me there. Just it's David Richter or the David Richter under all that stuff. That's how they can connect.
Appreciate it, David. Man, thank you so much for being part of this party.
Yep. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Okay, now moving right along, man. We were getting right back into this again. Great words. Like I said, definitely a great book for those of you real estate investors. It's a must read for sure. So be sure to do that. All right, let's get back to some of these other bonuses, right? So here are the bonuses. We mentioned cash flow secrets. Cash flow secrets is that way of how to find and free up cash, essentially how to create that profit so you can use that profit first method for that very same thing. Then, as you just heard David talk about, as well as Eddie as well, because Eddie was raised on this topic of infinite banking, and you may have heard of it, maybe you haven't. There's a whole curriculum, right? Infinite Banking Explained, that I really try to dumb it down. I can't tell you how many times, even just the last week, I was on a ranch, hanging out with these entrepreneurs, guys that are making millions of dollars, and we're just hanging on a ranch, and we're talking about this concept because they had heard about it, but so many never understood it. And then after just a few minutes, they said, man, like I just understood this in a way I never did before. And so that's what I do. I try to teach and really dumb it, not just dumb it down, but just make it simple and make it make sense, where it's not just a product pitch and that kind of thing. So we actually have a whole program on just Infinite Banking Explained. Like, what is it? How does it work? How do you actually use it to where not only do you have a great place that's like a tax-free, high-yield savings account that's paying you like 6% a year tax-free, but it's also a place you can make money in two places at once, where you can not only just store money in there, but then use that money to invest to generate more passive income, which is kind of the big crux, the kind of where the climax of the book goes to, right? So that's what we really talk about, of that get lean, get liquid, and then get it out. And that leads to the live 3-week training. It's about a $2,000 value right here. For those of you that do buy the book, you buy the book, and you report it. And like I said, we're going to give you that method of how you're going to be able to report the book, how you bought the book, so that we know you can be enrolled to get the Cash Flow Secrets, Infinite Banking Explained. And for the next 3 weeks, I'll be doing a special live class just for you. Specifically, how do you actually implement the things in the book? Sharon Lechter had mentioned this earlier, where she said, it's just one thing to, listen or, like read the concepts of the book of Rich Dad Poor Dad, say, yeah, I got it. Yes, yay, let's go. Let's go for passive income. But then your life doesn't change. Nothing is different. This is what we want you to do. We want you to be able to read the book and then learn how to apply it. And although there are some application principles in the book, I want to be able to bring that out so we could talk about that. So those next 3 weeks is specifically about those sections of get lean, get liquid, get out, right? How do you actually implement those things? Be able to have a Q&A interaction, so then you can be able to do that. We actually have right there, like you can buy the book to get those bonuses. There's the link, to the Amazon link if you need to, I don't know, take a picture or something like that. Unless you're on your phone, then I guess you just do a little screenshot thing or click, that kind of stuff, depending if you have an iPhone or whatever, right? But definitely you can get access to that. But that's the next 3 weeks, starting next Tuesday, at the same time of day as it is now. The next 3 weeks in a row, we'll be going over get lean, get liquid. Like, how do you actually get your money available in cash, which right now is so important. I actually recorded a podcast on that today to come out next week, just to talk about why it's so important to have liquid cash in your possession, so then you can then get it out. Because right now, just like Eddie had said earlier, there are some opportunities where he's like, I'm seeing great buying opportunities everywhere because people are not liquid. They don't have the cash available. People are strapped right now, paycheck to paycheck, which is why we have Cash Flow Secrets. People are also strapped because they got their money in different investments, because they were told, if you don't get it out to every place possible, out of your possession, out of your power, put it in your 401k and lock it up where you can't touch it unless you get laid off or fired, or lock up in your house equity. But then you have to ask the bank for permission, like it's asking them for the car keys, the car you actually own, right? You have to do all these kind of dumb things to be able to get access to cash. And people are now not liquid because they got their money out into places out of fear of that sort of thing happening. So anyways, I'll take that part off. There's a QR code, by the way, that you can scan, much bigger if you need to have the QR code too. So anyways, that's what you guys can actually have for then again, the next 3 weeks. Scan that QR code. Is this the I'm trying to remember, is this for the bonus, like the process, or is this just for the book? Just for the book. Okay, this is just for the book. All right, got it. Okay, moving on. Here we go. All right, back again. Here we go. Okay, so here's again, you can purchase the book right there. Here's how you get those bonuses, by buying the book. All right, now here's how you do it. You're going to submit your receipt. Here's the next QR code you are going to want to save. So after you bought the book, this is the right QR code, right? Same one we're seeing here. Here, let's add this. I don't know what happened there. I think that's the same one. Hold on, something just happened. It was kind of a little funky here. There, now we're back. I don't know what's going on. It's like possessed. I'm telling you, it's Mercury in retrograde. I heard it. It's the Northern Lights going on. I don't know what's going on, but it's messing with our technology right now. So get it fast, okay? Get that QR code before it disappears. I have no clue where it goes again. But anyways, so what we want you to do is buy the book and then send us your receipt. And so that link is so you can submit the receipt to us so that we know you've bought the book, and then you can get access to the bonuses. So that's how you're able to do it. So make sure you have that link. So then you can say, hey, I bought the book. Here's my receipt. And yes, like Livia had asked earlier, what if I already bought the book? That's okay, because we've got this, right? So we've got this you can actually use. You can give us the receipt for whenever you bought the book, and we will honor that. So then you can be part of those live calls. And yes, even get access to the recordings, because I know some people say, yeah, but what if we cover stuff and I can't take down notes fast enough, or maybe I'll miss part of it because I'm still getting off work or whatever. We'll give you the recordings as well when you're able to do that. So be sure you go and buy the book, and there's where you submit the receipt so that we can get you guys enrolled. So then you've got that $2,000 worth of bonuses. Sound good? Everybody good? Go make a comment. Make sure you're still with me. I know that more and more of you guys keep jumping on as we go along in this little party here. So if you're good, I'm going to move forward here because we got some more guests that are coming our way. All right, awesome. Oh, yes. And there you go. Check your email after you submit. Just make sure you don't block us. Make sure you don't put us in your spam list. Okay. Otherwise, you will miss out on getting all those deals. Awesome. Great. Glad to hear it. So, okay. Let's moving on. Let's talk about how you put this book into action. Now, like I said, we're going to be talking about that over the next 3 weeks, but I wanted to bring on people who actually have lived it. They've been there, they've done it, and they're still doing it, right? So we're bringing on a few guest speakers here, or guests, I would say. The first one here is Amit, right? I want to get Amit from Massachusetts because one, it was awesome hanging out with him when I ran the Boston Marathon. We threw over tea at the Tea Party boat and everything together. It was great. But I mean, like, he was one of those guys that he's just like, just get stuff done, right? I'm editing this for this purpose to keep it PG, but he's one of those guys that just get it done, right? And I wanted to bring him on to talk about how he's able to, like, really about where he came from and how he's able to apply that in his situation. So, so Amit, it's good to have you on, man.
Hey, Craig, I'm so excited. Thank you very much for having me. What a huge deal this is for you to get that book out. That's a huge ripple effect there.
I know. And I appreciate, actually, you guys may not know this, but Amit was one of the people that even proofread it beforehand to make sure I didn't say anything too stupid beforehand. So I appreciate you putting some effort into this book as well. You're part of this
My
movement.
pleasure.
So, Amit, tell us a little bit about you, like, your story, like, your career, things like that.
Sure. I fell into the trap that your father was in that you described. I spent over 30 years as an entrepreneur and global executive in 8 different countries and 4 different continents. And I thought that what I was taught was work really, really hard, save as much as you can, everything will be fine. And it really wasn't until I was fortunate enough to run into you, hear about you, and then meet you, that I realized how important it was to put my money to work alongside me, because there's only so many hours in the day, and I'm missing all my time with my family, and I really was not feeling like I had any other options. But then, we started talking. I started learning very aggressively. You really helped, first of all, with the mindset of putting money to work and prioritizing cash flow being the unlock to freedom. Started with the money leaks, made sure to find money that we can put, in place. And then I did, that format that you mentioned, the book, done with you. In other words, you were kind enough to introduce me to different business models and operators, and I learned alongside them, all the different ways that you could invest in investments that I didn't, know were possible to create passive income, and lots of due diligence and lots of trial and error. But overall, I came up with a 3-year goal. I'm 2 years into it, and I'm roughly 2/3 of the way there. Not everything works exactly, but everything is an amazing learning lesson. And the other piece that really was a big unlock once I learned how to put my money to work and learned about different business models where I can put the money was to learn about, good debt versus bad debt. I started to aggressively look for ways to refinance my own properties, to put them to work once I found that there was a way for me to earn income in a reasonable way, which totally accelerated the entire plan and led me to learn about self-directed IRAs and whole life policies, of which I have already created 3 for my kids that they don't know about, but they will know when the time comes. In addition to myself, and I have been loving every moment of this experience, mostly because it has genuinely allowed me to buy time. I'm literally using, putting my money to work to buy me time with the family and with some other passions that I have.
Yeah. What kind of passions do you have? I'm curious.
The initial things I focused on was family and health. But now that I've got passive income, family, and health in place, I was very inspired to pay it forward, the things that I'm learning with you, to kids, especially. I have 3 teens.
Yeah.
It's partly why I wanted to be at home before they disappear. And I'm shocked and appalled at what all their friends and fellow family members and friends don't know. And I realized that what you taught me now, had I known about it 30, 40 years ago, would have made all the difference. And the one
Yeah.
advantage kids have over us adults is time. So I took it upon myself to volunteer at some schools and then write a book of my own focused on teaching kids really how to get the right skills and habits up front by, learning how to earn, and then spending less than they earn, paying themselves first, just like the profit first, author talked about, and putting their money to work, no matter how small, just consistently. And now I have set up a foundation where there's some very successful people who will be helping to fund these experiential learning courses in local high schools to promote this idea, and hopefully get your ripple out to the next generation as much as possible.
That's exciting. You're not just trying to create a lifestyle, but you're creating a legacy. I love that.
I hope so. I genuinely feel that this is an opportunity to give kids not just skills to fund whatever ambitions they have in life, but also self-esteem and accountability, something that I think could really benefit this next generation.
Yeah. Do you feel that's kind of lacking here in recent days?
I do.
Yeah. Well, I love it, man. I love it. That for me means a ton, just because I know, like, I'm trying to create that ripple effect of that freedom and prosperity, and you're living it. And
So Chris,
Man.
if it wasn't for you, I would not have been able to allow myself the time, nor have been so inspired to do that for the kids. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks to
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for doing it too. So, well, tell me, like, if for anybody who's maybe not introduced these principles before, maybe they just barely got this book, what's something that they should look forward to as they're reading it?
So I think that what they should look forward to is doing what they're reading as they go.
Hmm.
The book is very well organized in terms of first step, second step, third step. You can read it, all the way through and probably think about it. But when you read it and do it as you go, the world changes. And that would be, my advice, to not just read it, but read it and do it chapter
Yeah.
by chapter.
I love it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we realized pretty far in, we're like, wait a minute, if it's a blueprint, there should probably be a blueprint to follow, right? There should be some kind of step by step that makes this a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's perfectly structured, and it's very much how I experienced it, working with you over the past 2 years. So I think it's
Yeah.
a beautiful book that it packages it and allows, so many more people to learn from your experiences.
Yeah. In case you're wondering what book we're referring to, this is our book, the Work Optional Blueprint we're referring to right now. But we did have a question here referring to your book, right?
Oh,
Where do you learn about your things that help kids? I mean, do you have something you offer or something
sure.
that you do share with people?
Well, two things. First of all, my book, The Ultimate Personal Finance Playbook for Teens, is available on Amazon, including
Nice.
Audible, although also not by Morgan Freeman, just, um, and anybody who wants to reach out to me, especially if they have, are aware of local schools who'd be interested in this program, I'd be excited to sort of train the trainers. Just reach out to me at Amit Manypads on LinkedIn. And there's only one of me. That's a pretty unique name. So it should be easy to find. AMIT MENIPAZ. If you reach out to me, just let me know and I will follow up. Happy to connect you with the foundation's work.
Absolutely. Well, great. I really appreciate having you on here today. And most importantly, again, that you're living what we talk about in this book. I mean, that's why we love having you here. So thank you for being a part of that. And yeah, I'm excited for the next year to see what happens for you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Chris. And good luck with the book.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, like we said, I mean, this is great stuff. I mean, it's not just enough to read a book. And this is something I wanted to have change people's lives. And so I love seeing that. And yes, you definitely want to make sure now you go and read it. You want to make sure you actually do it step by step, because, as I always say on my podcast, almost every episode I'll say it's one thing to be a hearer of the word, but it's another thing to be the doer too, right? And that's where your life really begins to change. And so his name is Amit Menopause. And so that's AMIT MENIPAZ. I think I said that right. So I could write it much better than I can speak it. But anyways, yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for joining us, Amit. Next person we're bringing on here, I'm actually bringing on our buddy Craig. Now, some of you guys, if you've ever watched our podcast, for one, which if you haven't, you better, right, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or at least listen to it on Spotify, iTunes, whatever you do. The Money Ripples podcast. I've had Craig on come a few times. Craig has a very unique story. Craig started out as one of my clients going on nearly, I think it was about 8, almost 9 years ago. Started as one of my clients, left Wall Street, moved to Florida, because that's what everybody does when they go to New York. They leave New York to go to Florida, right? And then of course, started to become a client of ours and practice what we preach. And later on, actually 4 years ago, became a coach with our company as well. And so excited to have him on. Yep. Here's how to spell Amit's name for these guys that wanted to know. Amit, you're so popular. People are like, wait, Rich Dad Poor Dad, forget that. Like, who's Amit? So anyways, no, I'm glad to have him on, because it was perfectly aligned with exactly what we're talking about here today. So yes, we got Craig coming on here. So Craig, all right, there we are.
Hey, Chris.
Welcome.
Congrats, man.
Thanks. I know you were a big part of that book too. I know you get a special shout out in the book and everything as well. So glad to have you here.
Team effort for sure. But I know the effort it took to get the book out. It's a lot of work for people who have never published a book before, and it turned out really, really well. I say it's like all 1,000 podcast episodes wrapped into an easy, quick read. So if you can't binge all 1,000, if you're new to our group and our community, pick up the book. It's got so much good info in there.
It's funny because I saw the book, and I'm the kind of person I can be a slow reader at times. I'm much more of an audible type person. And it was funny, like I had let my wife read the book, and an hour later, and this is like at night. So I can't remember what I did, Duolingo or something like that. And I come back and I see my wife's halfway through the book in just an hour. And all I kept thinking is, dang, is that easy to read? I can't believe it. But so no,
it's addicting. That's for sure.
I like to think that's why, of course. Well, Craig, give us more of your background, because I know you started on Wall Street. We had kind of similar parallel, universes or whatever, I guess you could say, even though you were like literally in Manhattan on Wall Street doing stuff with big firms as well. Tell us more about that story and what led you to want to create passive income.
Yeah, so I worked for one of the major Wall Street banks for about 10 years. I was there 2007 to 2017. So really kind of through the, I'd say the heyday of when social media and podcasts started to become very popular. And as kind of a finance investing guru, one of the first podcasts I came across was a little podcast at the time called Money Ripples, right? This is maybe 2012, 2013. It was a long time ago. You were definitely a pioneer in this space.
That was basically that was the Chris Miles Money Show, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Back in the good old days. And your message, Chris, just resonated with me so much, right? About living life on your own terms, financial freedom, creating cash flow, right? Cash flow equals freedom. I'd never heard that before, and that really resonated with me. So to draw a parallel, right? So, I'm, a young analyst on Wall Street. I was working in the private bank, managing ultra high net worth portfolios, right? So think 25 million and up, so the ultra wealthy. And, at that stage, it's a lot of wealth preservation, very conservative income. And I'm thinking, okay, if these people can generate, 5-6 million off of their portfolios, that's great for them, but what am I going to do, right? So I kind of started my career on the tail end of the great financial crisis. So that really sent a lot of people into tailspins. 401ks are down 50% within a 3-month span. So I'm thinking, do I really want to roll the dice, hope and pray that the markets are just going to continue to go up? that when I'm, 65, ready to retire, hopefully I have enough money in there that I can live off that, the outdated 4% rule, whatever that means. And so I said, there's got to be a better way, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I found you. That's how we connected initially. I think what a great foray into our type of alternative investing is through real estate, right? So I was thinking, I got to buy an apartment in Manhattan. That's going to be the key, right? That's never gonna be an issue. And oh my gosh, have I learned so much about investment properties, and now slowly getting into funds, syndications. There's a whole other world of alternative asset investing, which you go into a great detail in the book about, right, step by step on how to do what we actually preach. It's totally changed my life. I have a specific roadmap of numbers I need to hit very specific targets. And so what we do, and what you outline in the book, what you do such a good job with, is really showing people you don't have to roll the dice and guess, right? There are specific things you can do to plan for your work optional number. And that's just, you highlight that in the book. And what Amit was saying, I mean, gosh, that was amazing. Him talking about his own journey, but then also reiterating what a great read this is for your kids too. Not only is it good for, you as an adult to set your own financial freedom targets, but gosh, if you have kids, if they have the power of what's in this book, they could be work optional by 30, 35 years old, right? That's the truth. So there's just, so much good stuff, and very blessed that we crossed paths all those years ago.
Yeah, same here. Well, I mean, you've had a unique perspective because, like Amit, for example, I mean, you actually coached Amit. You actually worked with them. You're coaching our clients. You're seeing this day in and day out.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of people that, and they've told me this. They said, like, is the stuff you're talking about really possible? I mean, can I really get like 10, 12% a year on my investments? Is that even a thing, right? Like, is it too good to be true? Like, all that kind of stuff. And I know from your perspective, you've seen this happen over and over again, not just in your own life, but with literally like hundreds of people's lives too. What's your perspective when you hear something like that?
Gosh, there's a lot of thoughts go through my mind. I'd say number one is it's absolutely possible. And what makes our clients really unique, right? The people you attract through your message is you don't have to give your money to, some financial advisor where you're just a number in their system, right? You can be the CEO of your own portfolio, of your own assets. And we educate and teach you on how to get from point A to point B. And that's very unique, right? For every single one of our clients. There's no one size fits all portfolio. And so everyone's on their own journey, right? Whether they need growth, whether they need cash flow, right? And we can help people put, that theory into practice, right? So I love also what Eddie also said is, read the book, but don't just read it, take action, right? And so every client has their own journey. And another thing we do, I'll say this too, we really focus a lot on risk and return, right? Another thing I'd say, what's broken with the traditional financial system is a lot, people will log into their account, they see their assets go up, they see their assets go down, they're not really sure why. We spend a lot of time educating people about, yes, these returns are possible, and these are the risks associated, right, with these investments. How do you get comfortable with these risks? How do you do due diligence? How do you make sure you design the optimal portfolio that matches your goals, right? Because my goals are different than your goals, are different than Amit's goals, right? How do you design that portfolio that matches your work optional number? And that's something that's going to be very unique to each individual investor.
That's so true. I know that surprises people sometimes because you're so used to this. I don't know if you guys have felt this, those you watching right now, but it's almost like the world out there tries to make it seem like you just fit into a little box, right? You just do this system, everybody gets, just stamp it, just keeps popping out like the same old thing. But I can tell you from firsthand experience, and I know Craig can too, is that no one situation looks alike when you do this. But the great thing is the blueprint is the common thing, right? It's the blueprint. I know that Craig, you follow all the time with each client. You're taking them through that process as you're going through this blueprint. And even you'll see in the book, guys, there's like the 5 phases that you go through. Everything from just trying to figure out like where are we starting from, all the way to creating that income avalanche, right? Where you're able to double down and you really get those investments to start building and compounding in your favor all through that whole process. Like it's for us, it's just routine for the system. But the great thing is the results, although the results do happen, they do vary greatly because they vary based on who you are as a client, not just based on whatever pitch that somebody's trying to throw you into whatever they sell you, which that's just not what we do. And that's what I love about this book with the Work Optional Blueprint. It's something that you can actually apply in so many different situations.
Such a good point. Yeah, the action steps and the pillars are similar, right? It's like you go from step 1 to step 2 to the end, but then everyone's journey is going to be very individual and unique to what their ultimate needs and goals are.
Absolutely. Well, Craig, any advice you would give to anybody who's about to embark on reading this book? I know some people are already in the process because they didn't want to wait. Other people are about to start it here, hopefully the next few days or so. What advice would you give?
Gosh, I'd say number 1 is take action. And number 2 is, you're being extremely generous with your time, offering, this 3-week course where people who buy the book can get personally guided by you, right? In order to put, theory into practice. People who take action and who actually, buy the book, do what it says, join the calls, those are the people that are going to see results, right? Versus, I got the book, I'll put it on the shelf, I'll wait for, a better time to read it, right? What you prioritize, exactly. What you prioritize, what's important to you, put that at the top of your list. And I guarantee if you put into practice, what you write, your life can be totally different in 12 months.
Could you share an example of somebody you've been working with recently? You don't have to disclose names. We keep that all confidential, but just somebody that kind of inspired you or just really just said, man, that just made my week. Can you share a story like that?
A really interesting, we talk about cashless secrets, right? I'd say a big secret that a lot of people don't realize is the equity they have in real estate, right? So, I've got I'm working with somebody who has six investment properties, but they don't have much cash flow. What they don't realize is they can tap into that equity, turn under $1,000 a month in cash flow into over $5,000 a month, right?
Wow.
With a few phone calls, some education from our end, right? Some introductions to some and education to some investment operators, and that's going to totally change the course of their financial future. So just one example of many. It's oftentimes when you're in your own world, right? It's difficult to see things from other people's perspectives, right? And that's what you and I love to do, right? We love to coach and say, okay, this is your situation. There's so many different options you have that you didn't even realize, right? And that's what's really powerful about what we do, and so many of the good action items that you have in the work optional blueprint.
Awesome, man. Hey, I appreciate your time joining us as well today.
This is great. Super excited. It's going to be a fun end of the year. And everyone, seriously, if you buy the book, attend the classes that Chris is going to run. They'll be very impactful.
I agree, man. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Chris.
All right, guys, there you go. I mean, like we talk about here, it's like putting this into action, right? Like that's what really, really makes a difference. That's the thing. I don't care about just having a bunch of book sales or whatever. Like that's not why I did this. I did this because I want your life to change, because really I have a goal. And I know our team shares that too, just like Craig, is that we want 1,000 families financially independent by 2030. We've got a lot of people that have done it and a lot more people that are on track, but we need a lot more people to get there, not for our sake, but for yours. And I knew that the only way this could really happen is not just having the podcast. Oh, that's a great start. And of course, we've been doing different things with that for many, many years. But I know for some of you, you just have to have something in your hands that's tangible that you can actually use and know. So anyways, I appreciate it. And yes, I appreciate some of you guys that have been there since the beginning when I even named it the Chris Miles Money Show. That was back in 2014 when I had that podcast. And, it's crazy to think that actually in 2014, actually it was the fall of 2014, 6 months later. Did you know I almost quit my podcast? I was just about ready to quit. And luckily, it's actually in the book. There's a story, and I got the picture in there too with the photo was taken with that group of people, that the whole team that was in that essential oils company said, "Hey, we actually follow your podcast." And it was the very thing that the day I was about to quit was the day that got me re-engaged to do it again and keep that ripple effect going. And that's how I was able to meet Craig, and meet Amit. And honestly, I met a lot of these people actually that you saw here today because of that. That's what seemed like a seemingly small choice where I felt like I was just talking to myself on a podcast. Now it was like something that allowed me to realize that there are people that lives are being blessed. Even if I don't know you, I don't see you because I'm on this side of the camera and you're on the other side. But ultimately this book, that's why I'm doing it, so that your life can begin to really change for the better. And so, again, for those of you who are buying the book, obviously I know by this point you probably have, if you've seen this QR code about, I don't know, 5 times by this point, here it is. If you have not bought your copy, because if you want the copy plus the bonuses with the cash flow secrets, the infinite banking explained, masterclass or, recordings that we have, and of course to get the access to the live 3-week class that we have going on as well. So you can actually implement the book while you're reading it. Something that I think is just absolutely essential to making a big difference. That's where it's going to be. So yeah, super, super excited to be able to have that for you guys here. Here's that link one more time. Obviously, if you can't, scan the little QR code for whatever reason, here's the link you can actually type in to be able to get the book. And so, so definitely now is your chance. Get the book. And of course, as we'll talk about here, or as I already mentioned before, the QR code, I'll give that as well again, so that you can scan the receipt to show us that you got it. So there's a QR code for the receipt. So be sure that if you're going to buy the book, make sure you send us a copy of that. Or you can even just, like we said online here, you can even take a picture of the book and say, I got it, and then submit it to this link right here. So anyways, this is perfect. Thank you so much for joining. I know I was supposed to go 2 hours. I know my publisher wanted me to go 4 hours long. Alex Ramosi says you go 7 hours long. I don't give a crap, guys. I'm going to do whatever I want to do because honestly, I'm hungry and I probably need a bio break at this point. And you probably do too. Some of you guys are like trying to figure out how to you're probably trying to make meals or do dishes, whatever you're doing. And so again, thank you again, not just for your support here, but again, this is the ripple effect I want to create. This is for you. This is what I'm here to do. This is why I want you guys to create that freedom, to create that prosperity, that abundance in your life. As you heard so many times said, it's that abundance mindset, and be able to have that abundance in your life, not just financially, but at a point where you're free to pursue beyond just making more money. This is not just about creating more passive income. That's what everybody wants, right? It's not just about that. This is ultimately about how do you create that financial freedom to create that time freedom to create more options. And when you have more options, you have more freedom. And with more options, you do things just like what Amit's doing, right? Where he's doing this with purpose to try to teach the next generation that what he feels he's called to do. And I feel that we're all called to create a ripple effect on this planet. We're all called, whether you believe in God or whatever it might be, we're here to do something more than just survive, pay bills, and die. We're here to do more, to create a legacy for our families, create a legacy for those around us that we can touch and create that ripple effect. And let me just share this. I know it's in the book, but I mean, this is why I called the company Money Ripples, because I was working for another company at the time. We were doing our thing, but I knew that something was changing. I felt like there was a shift happening. And as I was out for a run one morning, I remember I was just thinking about if I were to try to find a website, and I was actually trying to create a website to drive traffic to that other company. I was like, what should I call it? Should I call it Cash Flow Freedom? Kind of like my shirt, like I'm wearing like in the picture. I'm going to make sure I match the picture today. Do I do that? What is it? By the way, anything with cash flow was like over $10,000. And so I was like, well, that's kind of an expensive website. And so I was trying to figure out what it is. And I went to thinking about the very people I've already worked with, even the people that just applied the Cash Flow Secrets bonus that you guys are getting, and how they were able to free up $6,000 a month. And with that $6,000, he went and bought a 4-wheeler. But his wife says, don't judge us, which I didn't, because nobody was more broke than I was that I had coached. And so I was like, no, I'm not judging. She's like, no, you don't understand. That $6,000 a month, that allowed him to relax a little bit, to stop trying to worry and work through all week long and into the weekends, just trying to kill himself, trying to provide for a family. Now he's able to relax. And we got that 4-wheeler because now he's out riding around with our kids and they're having fun. They're playing. And she's like, I got my husband back and my kids got their father back. And that is what impacted me. And I remember thinking about, what does that do? Not just for the family. And obviously, it creates a new legacy for the kids to see something different, a more abundant way of seeing money and work and everything else. But even better was that it actually can impact the community, because when you're not worried about paying bills, when you're not worried about the day-to-day, when you're not even worried about, am I going to be able to retire? But you can actually create that freedom much, much faster, even decades faster than even what financial advisor will teach you. And that allows you to now free up that time to be able to create a bigger legacy that creates this ripple effect through the community, your country, and ultimately across the world. And that's when the name Money Ripples hit me like a ton of bricks. And unfortunately, I was nowhere close to my house. And so I ran fast. I did a B-turn, went home, just kept saying Money Ripples, Money Ripples, Money Ripples, Money Ripples. Yeah, as I'm running home, looked it up. The website was available on GoDaddy. So I bought that freaking website. And I was like, cool, now I got it. And a month later, that's when I got that termination letter from the company and says, hey, we want to go our separate ways. And here it is. Now it's 13 years since we started Money Ripples. And of course, this progress, of 11 and a half years doing the podcast, and now to where we are today to give you this book so that you can be in your hands. So again, I'm excited you guys have a part of this as well. I'm going to let you go and enjoy your family and really, think about, what you want to be doing with that freedom that you're going to get. Again, I'm not making all these promises that you're going to become financially free just reading this book. It does require action, as Craig said. But I will tell you that it's awesome. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of you joining us live. And of course, be sure, buy the book and scan that receipt or whatever you got to do. Send it to us so then we can actually send you the email. Be sure to check your email because we will put in your inbox to give you all those free gifts. Again, guys, thanks for joining the party, and we'll talk to you later.